So the game itself, Trev, this was a strange game where I think generally speaking this season, Buffalo's defense has been a bigger problem than their offense. I think the defense generally did quite a good job in this game, and yet the offense had another one of those games where they basically melted down and turned the ball over a bunch of times.
Dude, I can't sum up the Buffalo Bills any better than this. The Bills can beat any team in this league. They can also lose to any team in this league. Every single week, you do not know what you're going to get. So much had to go wrong for the Bills to lose that game last night. And every single one of them went wrong. You had fumbles by Josh Allen and by players not named Josh Allen. You had multiple interceptions from Josh Allen. You had crazy mind-numbing penalties, including the one at the very end of the game when you thought, they basically escaped. They escaped with that win, and yet they couldn't have it. At the very end, they continued to shoot themselves with a foot. And it's not just like the saying where you're shooting yourself in the foot. They've got a revolver, and the chambers are full. Like, they're unloading on their foot every single game. And it's crazy how the Bills do this, because when you look at the two long drives that they had, this offense was humming. You look at the two longest drives that they had that ended up in points, you go, this team could score against anybody. They made that look incredibly easy, especially when they are playing that complementary football, actually getting the running game involved. But Joe Marino, who does a great job covering the Bills on Locked On Bills and does a lot of other stuff, I was listening to his podcast earlier this morning because I like to get his thoughts on the team because he covers it very well. And I agree with what he said. They're not getting takeaways on defense, which means every single drive for them on offense is a really long drive. And you're demanding this offense to play really well. And it has. Like I said, when it looks good, you feel like this team's invincible. But without the turnovers that they're generating on defense, and with the plethora of turnovers that they continue to give away on offense, they are just making things so difficult for themselves. And they're putting themselves far further beyond the 8 ball than they should. No matter who they're playing, it almost doesn't really matter. So to me, going back to it, the Bills to me are just a team that it's hard to look at them and say, well, yeah, if they fix this, because it just seems like it's something different every single week. It's almost just like, okay, don't have the boneheaded penalties. Okay, don't turn the ball over. Okay, don't fumble the football. And all those things just keep happening. They just keep happening. And they're not balancing out the turnovers that they have on offense with a lot of turnovers on defense this season. And I think that is something that's really the reason why they're ultimately sitting here at 5-5. But this is a wild team, man. This is a team where if you told me they're going to be picking in the top 10 of the NFL draft this year, I'd go, okay. If you told me that this team's going to make the playoffs and go on some kind of crazy wild card playoff run, I'd go, okay. That's just where I am with the Buffalo Bills. You just never know every single week.
Yeah, I want to save that a little bit until later, talking about sort of what their outlook is going to be for the rest of the season. But focusing on the game itself for a second, obviously the turnovers were a huge part of it. I mean, James Cook fumbles early in the game. He hadn't fumbled since, remember, he came in last year, and I think his very first touch or his very first carry, he fumbled the ball. In the NFL, and then hadn't fumbled since. Had gotten back into the good books, had become a much bigger part of the offense. And then last night was the first fumble since that very first carry in the NFL. And then later in the game, he does this weird, he basically dribbles the ball to himself. It pops out, bounces right back into his hands mid-stride, doesn't even have to break stride to catch it again and carries on going. That could have been another one. But the turnovers are just killing them because they're not efficient enough right now at everything else to overcome those turnovers. And, you look at Josh Allen's passing map from last night, it feels like there's nothing easy at the moment. It's all being set up for him to make a crazy difficult pass from the far hash, layering over a defender underneath and putting it in a window. And it's can we find something easy for the guy to do rather than asking every pass to be, to require Josh Allen's physical skill set to be complete?
Right. And the thing is that they're not, I guess I don't have the numbers up in front of me from the last couple of years, but it feels like they're not even converting on those big shots nearly as often as they used to. Not that they don't have any. I still think they're, like you said, on the drives where they make it look good, they are pushing the ball deep down the field, and you see Josh Allen and he wows you and he reminds you of why he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. But they're not nearly as efficient going deep down the field. And I think some of that has to do with their pass catchers right now, and why a lot of Buffalo Bills fans are clamoring for a first-round wide receiver coming up this year, because they're not trusting Gabe Davis, even though Gabe Davis led the team in receiving yards last night, which I don't think that they want that to be the script, but they're not trusting Gabe Davis. They don't have another receiver outside of Stephon Diggs. Dawson Knox has been hurt. They like what Dalton Kincaid's going to be, but I think that you need more than him anyways. So then you throw in, even beyond the turnovers, man, the drops.
Yeah.
The drops killed him at the beginning of the game. Like, you got to, this is a very difficult game, but it's like, come on, you got to catch the football. Like, Dalton Kincaid had an opportunity to catch the football for a big first down. Gabe Davis had a big opportunity to catch the ball for a first down in the first half of that game. And maybe those catches make all the difference in the world, certainly in a game that ended as close as it did. So it's just misexecution, bad defense that we've seen throughout the season. Obviously, it was better last night. You got turnovers, penalties. Like, it just, every way this team can get in its own way, it does. And it certainly all came to fruition last night. And that's the only reason why they lose that game. I don't want to take anything away from Denver, who I think, when they got 70 points hung on them by the Miami Dolphins, I think everybody just kind of figured that the Broncos would be a laughingstock this year. They haven't been. Like, they have steadily been becoming a better football team. And I thought last night they played better as a football team. But they shouldn't have won that game. The Bills absolutely held themselves back from winning that football game.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I don't mean to take anything away from them, but like, that's the truth in the matter.
No, absolutely. I mean, you look at that game, and it was Denver was playing pretty well, and Buffalo was playing terribly, and it was for the majority of the game, and yet it never got away from them. Like, it was always close. You're looking at the score constantly, and like, this couldn't be going much better for Denver or much worse for Buffalo, and Denver's still only up like a touchdown. Like, this it just takes Buffalo to wake up for 10 seconds, and this game is back in their control. And it kind of did get to that point, and then, they obviously screwed it up at the end. But what you're sort of describing there in terms of Buffalo shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly, it reminds me a lot of basically how I've been describing Green Bay this season, which is like there's just mistakes everywhere, and it's not necessarily the volume, it's the timing and the fact that they're spread out amongst everybody, and they're not good enough to overcome that volume of mistakes. Like, there are other teams that make a similar volume of mistakes, but they're making a ton of big plays so that they can offset that, and it doesn't really matter. And this has really been Josh Allen's career in the NFL is, he's on that Jameis Winston spectrum of high volatility, a lot of bad, a lot of good, and you just sort of accept that as kind of the style of quarterback that he is. But this season, like, the volume of good has come way down. It's still pretty decent, but like, his big time throw rate is down over 2 percentage points. They're just not good enough to overcome. They didn't have, I think they have 4 drops, which is not catastrophic, but all 4 of them were like critical first down plays that should have moved the chains, kept the drive alive, and didn't. The fumbles, the interception, like these are the 2 interceptions. It's just somehow the timing, and they're not efficient enough outside of that to actually overcome those mistakes anymore.
That's why last night is really hard for me to actually have a takeaway from the Buffalo Bills outside of the fact that, again, it does not change my opinion to think that the Buffalo Bills can beat any team in the league. Maybe it changed my opinion a little bit in the opposite direction when I say that now they can lose to every single team in the league because, again, you hit it right there. Everything went wrong for this team. It was crucial drops. It was penalties. It was turnovers. It was everything that could have crushed the momentum of this team or continuing drives, getting more points on the board. It happened. And it took a special teams 12 men on the field penalty for them to still lose that football game. And that ended up happening. So, man, it's wild to think about where this team is. And again, if we go down the second half of this schedule and this team makes it in the wild card and they end up winning 2-3 games in the playoffs, I'm not going to be shocked because they have the ability to do that. they've just had a lot of things that hold them back. It's still within their identity, but they have shown that the margin for error, I think, is a lot smaller this year than it was in years past because they don't have that potency in the passing game like they did before.
One thing I was thinking about last night that I've only just remembered I was thinking, I wonder if this general approach this season of, it's been coming for a while, but the way defenses have been fighting back, playing more too high coverage shells, forcing everybody underneath, like the whole approach of the NFL on defense in the last 2 or 3 years has been, let's try and take away explosive plays, force quarterbacks to play more patient, take the underneath stuff, just change the style of offense that they have. I wonder if that's disproportionately negatively affected Josh Allen versus these other top-end quarterbacks. Like, is he just inherently less capable of being patient than some of these other guys? Like, Mahomes has, I think, shown an impressive discipline to be able to change his game and go away from the Tyreek Hill type chunk plays to killing you by 1,000 paper cuts, right? Tom Brady did that in his career as well.
Right.
He's shown the ability to morph and to become a different quarterback and take whatever is there. I will do whatever is the best way of winning this game. That's how I want to play the game. I don't care what else, I don't care which way it is. I don't have like an investment in a style of offense. I just want to win the game. I do kind of wonder whether Allen has shown, relative to some of these other quarterbacks, that he is not as good at just being patient and taking the easy stuff and wants to take that shot, wants to have that kill shot, wants to hit the cover 2 hole because it's 20 yards downfield and it moves, it's 3 plays worth of offense. I just wonder if defenses in today's NFL are actually hurting him more than they're hurting some of the other top quarterbacks.